The new Affix system was announced to us in the latest Q&A, but what will it actually look like? Well, we can see that it was actually super impactful from an earlier build of the game. So, let's take a look. The current demo build they are working on has the new Affix system, and that was supposed to be finished this month, so we should see the changes shortly. If you want to see this and the rest of what was announced in the Q&A video with Reynad, go and check out our previous video, links below. But that is for later. For now, we dive in deep with the Affix system. It is still very much in development, but we saw an earlier version of it in a build of the Bazaar back in 2020, which I'll cover in a bit. But firstly, there are a few things with regards to this Affix system that we are yet to see, and I'm afraid we can only speculate on, but that won't stop us. First things first, the card art changes for the Affix system will eventually come. It won't be in this next build, but it will be in the final build of the game. But what will this look like? Will Flaming Atlatl have the end of the dart wreathed in fire, or will the item card itself take on a fiery effect? The latter, creating an effect around the card, is much easier to repeat, as it just involves a base change to the card, no matter the item. It'll just be different for each affix. The former, however, involves changing every single piece of artwork for every single card in the game for every type of affix that it can have applied. This would be super cool, and if they do that, you better respect the time and money invested into it. But I'd be happy with either. Now, a long time ago, when talking about Forja in that old October build, we'll go over that in a minute, Reynad referenced a really awesome animation that would happen whenever you upgrade. I guess this is something we will still be getting along with this new Affix system, but it is yet another thing we'll be speculating on, as we didn't get to see it at the time. We know Forja likes her anvil, and Reynad did mention something about this anvil when teasing it, but we know nothing else. Will we actually enter a forge and see her working on our item, or at least just working in some way? Or will it just sort of pop up an anvil out of nowhere like the effects of Hearthstone? Let me know in the comments below what you think might happen, or at least what you want to happen. Alright, I've kept you here long enough. On to the juicy stuff. We already saw Forja before, as I have mentioned, so let's dive in and figure out what we will actually be seeing in this new build. Back then, Forja was just a regular merchant. She would show you 4 types of upgrade that you could buy for 1 gold. This would mean that we might just get 4 options of affix upgrades too in the new system. This is something I hadn't really considered. I somewhat imagined you could just pick, but the game has dipped quite heavily into RNG. Albeit RNG or player agency. If you're worried about RNG, check out the official Bazaar video on RNG if you want to learn more about their RNG philosophy. It's a pretty good one. But we could very well just be shown a few affix options to pick from. Meaning, yet again, we can't necessarily get the build we want. You have to learn to adapt and pick on really good synergies in the game. There was also a mechanic where she would just offer you a single upgrade, but it was free. However, I don't necessarily think we'll be getting this, as it's more than likely going to be replacing the big upgrade end of day event, but I could be proven wrong. They were already reworking this system as well at the time, while it was being shown, so a lot of what we saw back then may definitely not be true about what is to be implemented, so take all of this with a pinch of salt. So, back then, upgrades offered a huge swing to items. Each item could have up to 2 upgrades, obviously now called affixes, but they would often be stronger than the base stats of the item itself. In one of the display games against Ben, Reynad picked up a yo-yo which dealt 1 damage every 3 seconds. But he then added upgrades to it so that it also dealt 4 burning damage and healed 5 health every time it triggered, on top of just the 1 damage. So you can start to see how upgrades or affixes in either the old system or definitely even the new system could very well determine your entire build. There will undoubtedly be items that are naturally more inductive to upgrades or affixes, but to some degree all items are made much better with these upgrades or affixes. So, if we imagine the last build that we saw and apply the upgrade system, things like Vanessa's small item build with a bunch of quickly firing weapons can benefit pretty well from these flat damage upgrades. But the long wind-up sniper build could benefit from the speed upgrades, or especially the double damage upgrade which existed back then. It's a pretty spicy upgrade, again, we'll get into it. This is a huge part of what will help keep the meta from going stale, especially if you can't pick your upgrade. If upgrades are a huge core piece of your build puzzle, and instead of getting the sniper rifle upgrade you needed, you instead just get a bunch of good upgrades for the switchblade that you happen to be holding onto just because it filled a space, you may want to pivot into the switchblade build instead if these upgrades are that important. As I'm pretty sure I say every single week, go and check out the pivoting meta video on the channel. It goes through exactly what we mean by pivoting and will probably help you get a better mindset about the meta in the Bazaar in general. It's less about building up core archetypes and much more about building up synergies and being able to spot good opportunities to get out of the build you're in and into a better one. One extra consideration with any build, if we see upgrades being a core part of your win condition, is that you won't be able to upgrade lots of items if we do see it at the end of each round where the current upgrade level system is. This is a much bigger problem for some small item builds, which will have to really focus on just upgrading their core damage or utility cards, rather than all of the other combo cards that are part of their build. But they will undoubtedly have more flexibility should the affixes be randomized, and will have a better chance of making use of what they are shown. So, what were these upgrades that we saw back in October 2020? And which may reappear in the game soon, and what does that mean for the game going forward? Well, I'm glad you asked. I took a bunch of screenshots of the upgrades from back then. So let's take a look at 20 of the potential affixes we could get from the previous build in the new build, and what that might mean. First up, Charged gives an item plus 5 energy at the beginning of the match, equally to Engaged, which starts the item off fully charged. Both of these will help you get your build off the ground quickly, potentially helping one-shot and control builds, which looked like they'd take a while to come online from the last time we saw the build. Although with the new speed stat being introduced, I imagine we'll see that applied instead of flat sort of charge numbers. Next up, Plated, which is a bit of a weird one. We see Trusty much further down, which reduces energy cost by 3, but Plated increases it. It makes me wonder if there are cards or builds that benefit from certain items triggering later on in battle. Only time will tell. Sturdy grants armor when an item breaks, and further down the list, Sacrificial grants other items energy when it breaks. And while item breaking no longer exists, we do have consumables. So perhaps we'll see some upgrades or affixes designed for consumable items like Chocolate Bar, which are potentially more powerful, but you kind of lose the upgrade as soon as the item is triggered. Temporal fits in with a bunch of these other ones, like Super Efficient, Futuristic, Sacrificial, and Trusty. They all affect energy cost, which we know is being replaced by a speed stat, to give the devs better control and make sure that things just really cannot go infinite, as that seems to break the game a lot. So expect a version of these upgrades, but focus on speed instead. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can keep you posted on all new effects, such as speed, as soon as we get the information. Next up we have the on-hits, which were already referenced in the main Q&A video recently. Chilling, Flaming, Poisonous, Eager, and Supreme Sturdy all add something to your weapon when it strikes, be that stun, burn damage, poison damage, healing, or even gold generation, which I thought was an interesting option. There was also Shielded, which was an on-use rather than on-hit, but falls into the same category. Expect to see a bunch of these and more in the next build, as they were already heavily referenced. These are the ones I'm almost certain that we're getting. And you can quite obviously build things off of this. If you have Burn already in your deck, you can add Flaming for even more burn. If you're trying to go for gold generation to plow all of your money into a super big build after 2 losses, then you're going to want to get Eager. Finally, we have a few effect types that don't seem to have many versions, they're more like one-offs. Ticking increases your time-based effects, presumably like burning or poison ticks, very handy in those builds. Destructive straight up doubles the damage of an item, hello Sniper Rifle. Twin has the deadly dual cast, which we saw often in the preview game that Ben and Reynad played. It fires the item off twice when it triggers naturally, which can really double down effectively on whatever you're trying to do. There's also Jealous, which just adds some flat damage to your item, which may not sound that good, but if you think about cards like Yo-Yo, which triggers often, or even Atlatl, which triggers faster and faster and faster as the round goes on, that could start to get real dangerous. As you can see, there are a lot of really interesting ways to influence your build with the Affix upgrades. And this was just from back when it was a merchant. It sounds like it will actually be taking the end of the day upgrade slot instead, so it will be given a lot more emphasis. You will need an idea as to where you want to take your build as you go into this upgrade Affix Forja merchant space, while making sure you don't leave any gaps in your armor that could be exploited by commonly picked up items. But thanks to upgrades, you should have the options there. The sand is there. Now you just need to build the best sandcastle. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, it really does help me out. I'm trying to be here covering the Bazaar as it's developed for you guys. I hope you're enjoying the content, and I hope you're enjoying the content over on the main Bazaar channel as well. Don't forget to go over and give that some love. I've been Greg, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao!